Hello, and welcome everybody to the September 2025 edition of Let's Talk. And I know it's been a couple of months since the last one, but I didn't really have anything to discuss in August. So that's why you didn't get one. I'm going to try to be better about that in the future with Let's Talks. I know I've been trying to put these out monthly for the past while now, but honestly, is there really a point in me putting one of these out if I don't actually have anything to say? And on that note, this is actually probably going to be the last Let's Talk of the year, if I'm being honest. And there's a very good reason for that. We'll get into it later when we talk about the current Let's Plays and the schedule and all that stuff. But yeah, this might actually be the last one. Not to say it's going to be the last update video, but that's also a topic that I will discuss later on, probably at the very end of today's Let's Talk. I also want to, at some point, discuss the gameplay footage that's going on in the background. Again, though, we'll talk about that later. I think today, the best place to start is the same place I start every Let's Talk, and that is going over the monthly schedule, going over the current Let's Plays, all that good stuff. So let's just jump right on into it. Same Let's Plays, as always, are just trucking along this month, but we actually have two that are coming to an end. Those, of course, being Mario Party 5 and Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, let's start with Mario Party 5, because I never would have expected this to be the game in the entire series that was going to give me the most trouble, but what is going on with Mario Party 5, man? It is so insanely difficult compared to the other ones. It's so insanely chaotic, but only sometimes. And then other times it is the most boring Mario Party that I have ever played. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with the design of this game. I think it's just because so much is outside of your control due to the way that the whole capsule system works. But also the difficulty is just all over the place with this game. It seems like it is spiked so heavily from previous Mario Party entries that I never would have expected 5 to be the one. Now, obviously, it remains to be seen if there's going to be a worse one. I still have to get through a few more. Right now, the plan is to still currently go through Mario Party 6, 7, 8, and the DS game before I finally call it quits, but I'm going to give it a little while before we jump into the next Mario Party game. I got a lot of other things to focus on. We'll get around to it eventually, but I'm going to probably take a break for a bit after this. Obviously, you guys are going to be getting the Bowser's Nightmare board here this weekend, part 1, and then part 2 the following weekend, which is, of course, the finale. I actually haven't even recorded those episodes yet at the time of recording this, but I will have it out in time, I'm sure of it. I usually actually record the episodes for Mario Party like the weekend that it goes out, usually that Friday, and then it goes out on Saturday. I don't know. Just the way that this whole Let's Play has panned out, it's been a little bit easier to just kind of do it as the episodes come out because I don't know, there's like something about this game that's like emotionally draining playing it. I'm having a good time with it. It's very entertaining, but just the sheer quantity of bullshit that this game has thrown at me, it's kind of mentally taxing, if I'm being honest. I couldn't have ever imagined that Mario Party 5 was going to be the one, but it has absolutely turned out that way. And yeah, as much as I've had a fun time with this, I am ready to move on. And of course, it is going to be replaced by Super Mario Galaxy 2, a Let's Play that I promised way back when I started my Super Mario Galaxy 1 Let's Play. Now, obviously, Galaxy 1 was pretty succinct. We got through the entire thing in a little over 3 months. That's mainly because I've actually played it before. Actually, I think it was closer to like 5 months, wasn't it? Yeah, it was probably closer to 5 months. Bad estimate. The point is that I cruised through Galaxy 1 pretty quickly, mainly because I have a lot of experience with that game. I've 100%ed it many times before, including in previous Let's Plays, and this was no different. Galaxy 2, however, is a different beast entirely. First of all, Galaxy 2 is just a bigger game in general. Going for 120 stars isn't even the beginning. There is so many more stars to go after in this game, including green stars. Of course, those are a little less time-consuming than going after some of the more major stars throughout the game, but with all of those tacked on, there are, what is it? Is it 240 stars or is it like 242 or some weird number like that? I think that's about what it is. All in all, Galaxy 2 is just a longer game in general. It's more comparable to playing through Galaxy 1 as both Mario and Luigi than just playing through the game one time. So this is going to be a much longer Let's Play, and I am, like I said, going for 100%, but I've also never actually done this before. I've gotten everything but the green stars, but I've never gotten the green stars in my life, so that is going to be completely blind, that portion of the playthrough. It should still go pretty quickly, though. I know about how the green stars work, and they're pretty simple to go after for the most part, so we'll be able to truck through that pretty quickly, but it is going to still be a much longer Let's Play. And we're just kind of settling in for another 3D Mario platformer adventure together. And I'm excited for it, and I hope you guys are too. I know these are generally pretty popular amongst people who watch Let's Plays. So I'm excited for it, but I'm also ready to continue recording it because I'm not even actually done working on it. I've still got a lot left to do with that game. But yeah, it's been a good time. All right, let's move on over to New Horizons, the other game that's ending this month. Now, obviously, I don't have much to say just because I kind of covered that in the last Let's Talk. Once I had actually finished recording New Horizons and had it all scheduled and ready to go, talked about my thoughts about the end of that Let's Play, and obviously you guys still have yet to see those episodes. But the important thing, and the biggest thing I actually want to talk about in this Let's Talk, is what comes after Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, I made a promise. I made actually a few promises a while back, but there was one big promise I made, and that was that there is a certain game that I wanted to have Let's Played before the end of the year. And that game is Middle-earth: Shadow of War, the sequel to Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, a game that I Let's Played almost a decade ago at this point, and enjoyed quite a lot, although in terms of all the Let's Plays that I have done on this channel, it is actually one of the more forgettable ones. But I said that of all the series that I have kind of left on cliffhangers, whether it be Middle-earth or BioShock, or ones that I started but never finished, like Dishonored or God of War, I'm going to go back around to actually completing those, and, you know, even future ones like Horizon 3 whenever that comes out. Those are going to all happen at some point, and Middle-earth: Shadow of War was supposed to be the next one on the docket. I know, I promised that. But here's the thing. Animal Crossing New Horizons ends on September the 30th, and the timing is just a little bit too perfect. There are a couple of games that I have Let's Played in the past where I said quite explicitly, if these games ever get a sequel, I am definitely going to go out of my way to Let's Play those. Horizon, obviously, is part of that, given that we're going to be getting a third game in that series at some point. Okami is another example. Anything made by Fumito Ueda, whether it be with Team Ico or with Gen Design, all of those fall under this umbrella, and another one of those games was Ghost of Tsushima. And here's the thing. New Horizons ends on the 30th. Not 2 days later, launches Ghost of Yotei. And like I said, the timing is just a little bit too perfect, but there's a bit more to my rationale than just, hey, Ghost of Yotei happens to be coming out right around this time and I really want to Let's Play it. There's more to it than that. First major thing, analytics. Okay, so I know a lot of people use analytics as a way of gauging the popularity of certain videos among certain demographics and seeing how they can evolve and change their content accordingly. I kind of do that, but I also kind of don't do that. I'm actually more interested in, I guess, balancing things in a way that's going to actually support my subscribers while still continuing the more selfish aspects of my channel where I still want to Let's Play games that are important to me and might not be as important to anyone else. Can you see where I'm going with this? Destiny is the Let's Play that is for me, while everything else is, I mean, games I still care about, but also the sorts of games that I expect my subscribers to come back to and watch over and over. Pokemon, Animal Crossing, Pikmin, Mario Party, Super Mario Galaxy, these are series that have a much higher retention rate than something like Destiny. People actually come back to those videos. Destiny's views are mostly, almost exclusively, made up of people who watch one episode and then never come back again. It gets a lot of its views from the YouTube search or from suggested videos. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. This Let's Play has always been a personal project, much like other Let's Plays in the past, and it is for me to see to conclusion. But the thing is that as long as Destiny is running, I want to run as few Let's Plays as I can concurrently alongside it that also fit that bill. So right now, just as an example, I wanted to get Horizon Forbidden West out of the way first before I came back to Destiny, because trying to run both of those Let's Plays alongside each other would have been a really bad idea. It would have created a lot of stagnation, and I know not nearly as many people would be interested in my videos as they are now. Pokemon always does gangbusters on this channel. In fact, there's a lot of people that I think are under the impression that, much like a lot of other old YouTube Let's Play channels, this is a Pokemon-focused channel. It's not. But I do dedicate 2 upload days to a Pokemon series at any one time, just because I've been very slow in the past at actually going through that series. But it is not a Pokemon-focused channel at all. The name is just a coincidence, and in fact is something that I don't even consider to be permanent. And then Animal Crossing. Again, Nintendo games in general seem to have a very high retention amongst my subscribers and the demographics that actually watch this channel, but Destiny does not fit that bill. And I fear that in starting a Middle-earth Shadow of War playthrough that I would be adding yet another one to the list that suffers from the same problem. But more than that, Middle-earth Shadow of War is also far less relevant than Destiny is, let alone what Ghost of Yotei will be when that comes out. Now, obviously, Yotei might not retain that relevancy over time as that Let's Play continues to go on, but it'll at least be there at the beginning and will be good for getting people on board and stuff like that. I mainly just don't want Shadow of War running alongside Destiny. That's like my big thing here. Because it is not a relevant game. In fact, Lord of the Rings, from the perspective of video games, is just not in a good place in general at the moment, given the fact that the entire IP is run and controlled by Embracer Group, and you could not have a worse publisher holding your IP right now. You just couldn't. They are so horrible at mismanaging everything that they have bought up. They pretty much are just a monopoly that just hoards IPs, and then they've made a lot of promises but have kept almost none of them, and they're just a blight on the video game industry in general right now, and they unfortunately have a hold of the Lord of the Rings IP and have done fuck all with it. So Lord of the Rings as a video game IP is still kind of floundering. So is sort of the cultural aspect around it as well, because I think most people still agree that only the original Lord of the Rings movie trilogy is anything worth spending time on. Hobbit trilogy isn't looked at too well. Rings of Power is definitely not viewed too well. All the current Lord of the Rings games like Gollum and Tales of the Shire, nobody cares about. I think very few people even remember the licensed adaptations of the movies in video game format that came out way back in the day, although Return of the King was and still is a banger. I don't know about the other two games, though. And then we have Middle-earth, the Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games that was supposed to be a much bigger series and just ended at 2. And so much of that was because Shadow of War just cultivated this really bad aura around it for a whole bunch of reasons that were kind of outside of the scope of the video game itself. I'm not saying that Shadow of War is necessarily perceived as this amazing game. I think the consensus is that it is a step back from Shadow of Mordor, but it had more going on in it. But that's not the problem with Shadow of War. The problem with Shadow of War was all of the external factors, the business decisions, the monetization. This was one of the premier offenders back during the loot box controversy days before EA ruined it for all of the publishers with Star Wars Battlefront 2. Shadow of War was one of the most notorious cases of this, and there was also the extremely tenuous situation with a DLC that was supposed to go to cancer charity research in the memory of a member of the development team that had passed away, that ended up being an entire snafu because in a lot of territories purchasing that DLC actually only gave the money to the publisher, and they weren't swearing by moving this money into relevant charities, and it was just creating this entire situation that was ugly and left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths and is impossible not to discuss when bringing up the conversation of Shadow of War because it is so ingrained in that game's legacy. All that is to say, though, that is all stuff that happened 7 years ago and is no longer relevant. So it's going to happen someday. It's just not going to happen immediately. In fact, to promise that Shadow of War is going to happen someday, I am actually in the process of recording it. I'm 10 episodes in, and I'm hoping to have every episode recorded before the end of the year. I don't exactly know how long it's going to take, though, because I am going through this game like 99% blind, so it might end up being a lot longer than I'm anticipating. It might take me a while, but I am working on it actively at this very moment, and it will happen when it happens, but it is going to take a backseat at times to much more relevant, much more important Let's Plays should anything ever crop up in the future. All I'm saying is that if I, let's say, for instance, record all of Ghost of Yotei, and then hypothetically Horizon 3 gets its trailer at the Game Awards and its release date ends up happening around the same time that Ghost of Yotei ends, well, then I'm sorry, Shadow of War, you're just going to have to wait a little bit longer. But it is something on the back burner. It is something I am working on actively, and it's not going away. It's just not coming anytime soon. All right, moving into the other Let's Plays, we got Destiny, we got Pokemon, we got Pikmin 2. I'll be really brief with Pikmin 2 because nothing has changed at all with that since the last Let's Talk. It's still going to be weekly, but the episodes will be shorter. Still going to be recorded in that same format. I essentially, when I started it, I recorded it under the assumption that it was going to somehow be 2 episodes a week, so it's got similar episode lengths to something like Pokemon or Destiny, but it ended up becoming weekly just so that I can buy myself more time to work on other projects, and so it's probably not going to be ending anytime soon. Then there's Pokemon, obviously still going strong. Pokemon White 2, I should say, is one of the biggest games in the entire series. Having gone back and done playthroughs of most of the Pokemon games on my own these past couple of years, I think I can say at this point that outside of Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, which cheat because they have DLCs, outside of those two games, Pokemon Black and White 2 wins in terms of just the sheer amount of content and the sheer amount of things to do in that game out of any game in the entire main series. The only one that comes close is Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but that's it. Black and White 2 are huge games, and there was so much that I recorded that it ended up being very, very long. I did say that I'm pretty sure this is going to be the longest Pokemon Let's Play I've ever done, and I am more confident than ever about that as I have continued to edit my way through it. But all that's to say that this has still been a very fun Let's Play, and I'm excited to show you guys more. I'm even having a fun time editing it. I really, really enjoy everything surrounding Unova, and it's just been so much fun editing through it and playing through it and all that stuff. So excited for more, but yeah, it's not even close to concluding just yet. And then we have Destiny. Let's talk about Destiny for a second. So Season of the Seraph is the current season that we are in and is going to be ending on October 5th, and then we're going to be jumping into Lightfall, the next expansion in Destiny's life cycle, and perhaps the most recently infamous expansion in Destiny's history. This expansion was pretty much the final straw for anybody who wanted to maybe come in and find investment in Destiny after so many years and give it a chance after hearing so many good things. This was pretty much the final straw for those people. And in such an awkward and weird way, too, because Destiny is a game that is so much more about its expansions, but due to what people know about live services, expansions are all really any layperson cares about. So when they see that a new expansion is coming out, that's when they jump on board. And Lightfall was the worst time to jump on board because everything that came before it was amazing, everything that came after it amazing, but Lightfall itself was a train wreck. And I can't wait to show you guys why it was such a train wreck from a Let's Play perspective. It honestly does almost everything that Destiny is so good at wrong. And it's actually quite fascinating to see it all in action and just see how much of a disaster it was because, again, right after Lightfall's over, once we jump into the seasonal stuff, it picks right back up again. It gets awesome. In fact, I will go out on a limb here and say that the time between Lightfall and the final shape was my favorite time to play Destiny of any time in the game's entire lifespan. It was so enjoyable. There was so much good content coming out around that time, so much extra support that just made it a fantastic time to play by myself and with friends, and there wasn't really a loot grind. It just felt like a celebration of everything that made Destiny great. I loved that time period for the game and can't wait to talk about that, but we got to get through Lightfall first, so that's starting here really soon. The other thing I want to say is that now that Witch Queen is done, Witch Queen and all of its seasons, I also have a pretty good idea of when exactly the Destiny Let's Play is finally going to come to an end. So, Witch Queen itself was a 10-month cycle, like, on the dot. The first episode of Witch Queen came out on January 5th of this year, and Season of the Seraph is ending on October 5th of this year. Isn't that amazing how that lined up? Exactly 9 months apart. And with that, I can now make pretty good prediction based on how long the next cycle is going to go and then the final shape of when Destiny is finally going to come to an end. Now, I know Lightfall and the seasons are actually going to be a little bit longer than the Witch Queen cycle was. I'm going to estimate at least another 2 months longer just because each of those seasons were a little bit more robust. There was a bit more going on, and there were also a few little addendums, such as the Into the Light event that we're going to be going over. And then, of course, we also have the final shape, which is an expansion in and of itself. So with all of that, I can estimate relatively about 13, 14 months of content between all of that before this Let's Play is finally complete. So I'm going to assume we're looking at a finale date of around, at the very earliest, December of 2026, or probably, more likely, January or February of 2027. That's about the time frame we're looking at. Finally something to actually see on the horizon. It's still a long ways yet. We still got a lot of Destiny ahead of us, but at the very least, I have a pretty good idea of when this is all coming to an end. But now, with all of that said, this is why there isn't going to be another Let's Talk this year. Because with Destiny going strong, with Pokemon White 2 going strong, with Ghost of Yote starting next month, with Pikmin 2 still going strong, and Super Mario Galaxy 2 just beginning, I can safely say that once Ghost of Yote begins, there isn't going to be a single deviation on this channel for the remainder of the year. It's going to be the same Let's Plays on the same days every single day well into 2026. These Let's Plays all have a long ways to go, and I am going to be sort of using this time frame as a pseudo break in much the same way that I did with Ghost of Tsushima a few years back, although instead of you guys getting only 2 episodes a week like you did back then, you're still going to get daily uploads, but I have other things that I'm going to be working on in the background in the meantime. Many different things that I've already started work on, and I know I talked about the summer of indies, quote-unquote. I think that was a little bit misleading because it gave people this idea I was going to play a lot of indie games this summer and put them on the channel. No, actually, that's going to be next summer, but I have started working on these series over the summer and have been recording as many as I can, and I have gotten a lot done so far. Now, none of these series are concluded yet, but so many of them are in progress that it would make your head spin. It makes my head spin just thinking about them. To give you some hints, a few of these games were games that I looked at in my Variety series that I intend to make full playthroughs of. There are also some other artistic games that I'm very interested in, such as the Monument Valley series, such as the Pathless and Sword of the Sea, Gris, Neva, Inside, What Remains of Edith Finch. Just so many of these iconic indie games that I've been jumping on into and just enjoying for what they are, and I'm having such a good time with them. There's also one game that actually came out this year, and without giving too much away, I am so blown away by what this game is doing and so enraptured by its game design choices and everything that it's about, to the point where I'm pretty sure this is going to end up being my 2025 Game of the Year, although I don't want to say that definitively because I have skipped a few of the modern classics that have come out this year. But I digress. It's a phenomenal game. My only problem with it is that I have been unable to finish it, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I might have to make some changes to see if I can actually do that, but this game has kind of, in a lot of ways, completely defeated me. I still want to make a series out of it, though, and I already have recorded dozens of episodes of this. I just need to get back to actually concluding it. But it's just one in a whole long line of games that I am currently working on. And it's not just indies, too. It's not completely limited to indies. I'm actually still working on Destiny: The Final Shape. I had to stop when the last expansion, Edge of Fate, came out because that ended up breaking a lot of things. And I'm still kind of giving it time before I jump back in. But that is still technically on the back burner. Like I said, I'm already working on Middle-earth: Shadow of War. I've actually already jumped into one of the next Pokemon games. Now, the next one after Black and White 2 is going to be Platinum. Like I said, we're going to jump back into the post-game, although I don't think that's going to be more than like a dozen episodes long. It'll be pretty brief. It'll just be a nice send-back to see a little bit of what Platinum's endgame has to offer before we finally call that a Let's Play through and through and end it conclusively. But then, as I said before, I'm going to be taking a break from the main series for a while and jumping into some spin-offs. The 3 spin-offs that are on my list are Pokemon Colosseum and its sequel, XD Gale of Darkness, and then the next game in the Mystery Dungeon series, because I have only ever done Rescue Team here on this channel, and I really want to get into the Explorer series at some point. I think I started a blind Let's Play of it, like, ages ago. I want to say more than a decade ago, but I only got a couple episodes in before I had to cancel it for technical reasons. And now I want to finally give that an honest try. It's probably going to be Explorers of Sky. If anyone has any argument that it should be Darkness or Time, let me know, but I'm pretty sure Sky is the suggested one because I think it's like the definitive version of the other two. It's the Emerald to the other two's Ruby and Sapphire, if you will. So that's probably going to be it. And what I'm going to probably do is I'll probably do Colosseum, which will be blind, by the way, and then sandwich Explorers of Sky in the middle of that and XD Gale of Darkness instead of doing Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness back-to-back, because those games are a little bit infamous for being quite tedious, and I think doing them one after the other would get insane, and I don't even know if I would be able to push through that. But that's all to say, I've already started work on Pokemon Colosseum a little bit. Yeah, I was just getting this itch to jump into some more Pokemon, and given that that's one of the next games I'm going to do, I figured, hey, why not? So I've already fired up Colosseum. I'm already working on some episodes for that, and I can't wait for you guys to see that whenever it happens. I'm getting so far ahead at this point that the only thing I have to worry about is not dating the episodes as I'm recording them. I'm going to have to be very vigilant about not doing that. But there's a lot for you guys to look forward to. And again, because I'm not going to be deviating in my Let's Plays too much, really Ghost of Yote is going to be the only one I'm going to have to upkeep as it releases because it's the only one that I haven't recorded anything for yet. Everything else is just going to be stuff I'm doing in the background, and I don't really want to take a lot of time speculating or talking about all of this stuff in Let's Talks when you guys aren't going to be seeing it for a long time anyway. So I'd rather just hunker down, get to work, and enjoy a bunch of video games, and then when 2026 rolls around, you guys are going to get a nice preview video of what's to come that year. So yeah, that's pretty much what the next few months are going to be. I hope you guys are okay with that. I mean, it should still be daily uploads. It still should be a lot to look forward to. It's just there won't be any changes. It's going to be the same stuff all the way through to the end of the year, just more of the same. So yeah, that was my reasoning behind that. But okay, there are 3 more topics that I want to touch upon before we call this a Let's Talk, especially since it's going to be the last one. I don't really feel too bad about making it very long. You've probably been seeing the gameplay footage in the background. Generally, when I do a Let's Talk, I just do B-roll so that I'm not talking over dead air and that there's actually something to see. I mean, these are videos after all, so there should be something going on in the background. But this time, I made a purposeful choice, and I'm showing a game that I have never talked about on this channel. And I'm going to be honest, after today, I'm never going to talk about it again either. This is Destiny Rising. This is the free-to-play mobile gacha game from NetEase, set within the Destiny universe, but in a dubious sort of way that allows them to not necessarily have to follow the canon of the main series and sort of do their own thing, and is also set in a past that is long before even the events of Destiny 1 take place. And yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing that's going on, and some people have been talking about it. And the main reason I want to touch upon it, well, the main 2 reasons I want to touch upon it, is 1, I know I'm going to get questions about it because of how much I make Destiny an emphasis of this channel, and 2, because I know that there are certain people out there who are actually saying a lot of positive things about this game right now, and I want to come back and explain why I think that is, because, okay, I'm not so much of a stickler to say that there is no way that anybody could enjoy this game. In fact, there are some merits to it. There are, in fact, 2 big positives that I have about this game, but I'll talk about why I still don't really even consider those positives. I'm not going to be like that kind of person. I'm not going to say there's nothing to like about this game because, no, that's not true for anything. People like Sonic 06, and that's the unmodded version. It's just a thing that happens. I mean, actually, I'm even one of those people, but I like it in more of an ironic sense. I digress. Point is, I don't have a problem with people who do genuinely like it, but I don't feel like a lot of that talk is very genuine, and there's a very good reason for that. But first things first, what do I think of this game? I don't like it. I would probably give it a 3 out of 10 if I was reviewing this. If I was feeling incredibly generous, I would give it a 4, and that's about it. And there's some very good reasons for that. Now, before anybody immediately comes and criticizes me for saying or having this predisposed bias against mobile games or gacha games, I'll have you know, and this is something I've never talked about before, but there is a gacha game that I play extremely heavily, like to the point where I'm almost ashamed of it. I have put way more hours into that game than I have any other video game this past year and I would say about 2 or 3 months. And that game is Zenless Zone Zero. Someday I'm going to make a video about that game. I'm hoping not anytime soon, but I'll make like a singular video about that game and just talk about the entire experience of playing that game because it's certainly not perfect. It is a MiHoYo game. It has a lot of bad gacha elements, but it has been infinitely more rewarding than any other gacha experience I have even touched in my entire life. And Destiny Rising, when I contrast it against that, looks so much worse by comparison. But okay, that is not the reason that I hate this game. I don't like this game because the only 2 things it does right, it does worse than the main series of Destiny in every single way. And everything else it does very poorly. Let's start with the good things, though, the positives. The first of those is definitely the gameplay. Now, keep in mind, I am recording this on the MumuPlayer emulator, which is the officially supported emulator that if you go onto the Destiny Rising website and you want to play this on PC, they give you a link that allows you to download the emulator and install the game straight from there. So it is officially supported, but do not get confused because that does not mean that this is a PC port of the game. It's not. It's still the Android version emulated. So you can only play this game on mobile. There's no console port. There's no PC port. It is a mobile game through and through. And as far as mobile games go, crunched down into the mobile format, this is actually impressive. I can't believe how well they have mimicked the gameplay of Destiny, given the circumstances. Is it anywhere as good as regular Destiny, though? Not even close. It's still a far cry from the satisfying, punchy, kinetic experience that makes Destiny what it is. It's not nearly close enough to be anything that I would classify as good. It just vastly exceeded my expectations. Then we have the visuals, which, for all intents and purposes, are just taking the landscapes and the environments that are already in Destiny and then just tweaking them a bit to be somewhat original within the Destiny Rising space. And I can't even give visuals a positive all the way anyway, because you don't even really have an opportunity to enjoy them in this experience because the UI design is so bad that it makes the entire game ugly by proxy. I don't know why NetEase thinks it's okay to absolutely assault the player with so many different prompts, so many different icons, so many different things that have a short press and a long press to activate, so many notifications and menu options, to the point where it's actually overstimulating and almost gross just to look at all day. And having all of that overlaid over what would otherwise be a pretty darn good looking mobile game completely ruins the visual experience here. So really the only positive I have is the gameplay, and it's still in so many ways worse than what Destiny is already doing. Then we get into the bad, which is the economy. It's very poorly understood, and it's also very stingy, like way too stingy even from a new player perspective, when most gacha games are at least pretty good to new players. It's just that after that the rewards start to peter out because they know they've hooked you, and then they don't have to incentivize you to stay around anymore. This game is stingy right from the start and gets only stingier. The hero identity also, which is a core component of what this game is, because it is not a looter shooter. It's a hero game. It's a gacha. You're going after heroes within the Destiny universe and build crafting them. The hero identity honestly kind of sucks. It's like the best they could come up with was different weapon archetypes for different characters, and that's really it. Otherwise, they're still confined within the constraints of the elements that Destiny has. Just the three, really. Void, Solar, and Arc. They don't even really touch Stasis or Strand or any of the future ones that came later in Destiny's lifecycle. It's just those three, and you really only need one effective hero in each element, and you're pretty much good to go in this game. The build crafting is very minimalist, very weak, honestly a lot weaker than anything Destiny can do, and it's just not that satisfying. The mission design is hit and miss. There are some good things. There is one strike that you're actually seeing on screen that I really enjoyed. The other strike in the game, not so much. The missions can be pretty decent sometimes, but all of this is propped up on top of a horrible story. Absolutely dreadful story. And not bad in the way that Destiny is infamous for, because back in the day, when Destiny actually had a bad story, it was bad because there was nothing there, and we all know why at this point. It's been brought up and talked about multiple times. The development of Destiny was just a train wreck. It was horrible all the way through, and right up until the very end, they didn't even know what they wanted the story to be, and then the lead writer ended up leaving, and so they ended up having to scrap the entire story right before Destiny 1 came out, and they were left with basically nothing to replace it, so it was extremely bare bones. Destiny Rising has the opposite problem. There is a ton of story here. There is a lot of cutscenes. So much dialogue, constantly going back and forth just to talk to people is something I feel like you actually do more in this game than just play it. And yet it's so infantile and bad and boring and clearly targeted towards a demographic that's younger than anybody that would even be interested in Destiny in the first place. I think we can mostly agree that Destiny is, as a series, designed to appeal to like the age 12 and up demographic. So teenagers, but adults as well, especially those who have a fondness for certain types of sci-fi. Younger than that, not so much. Not really for Destiny, especially because it's got a much more like an older mentality to it. I know there are younger Destiny fans out there. They exist, but they are not the target demographic of this series. But the story wouldn't tell you that, because the story is clearly written for like the age 8 to 12 demographic. It is, again, infantile, very poorly written, very stock, very standard, and incredibly boring. It has no sense of humor whatsoever, and the voice acting is just not good in this game. Yes, you have all of these heroes, but there is a specific hero named Wolf, who is technically your guardian, quote-unquote, your main character. They are the ones who go through most of the major story missions, and you actually are forced to play as them in certain story missions. You can't switch to some of the other ones that you've unlocked, and they are just very poorly conveyed, very boring. They do have a lot of talking to them, and they're just obnoxiously edgy, and, I mean, they're not the only one who's like that, but just I was going to say over the top, but no, it's the opposite, actually. They're too understated to the point where they're just boring. Like, not at all interesting to listen to any of this stuff. I found myself skipping a lot of the cutscenes at some point once I started getting sick of things because I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It's so bad. And there's, like I said, there's a ton of it. It's just not well conveyed. And the core elements of this game are not good. I just don't think NetEase does justice to the IPs that they get a hold of, period. I remember Diablo Immortal, and obviously that was a snafu before the game had even come out. But once it had come out, they showed right away that they were never going to be able to do to Diablo what fans actually wanted out of the series. It just wasn't going to be enough. And I feel the exact same thing with Destiny Rising here in this exact same instance, even though it's a completely different sort of game. And it's funny, and this is the main reason I even wanted to talk about this, it's because there are a lot of Destiny fans that have deluded themselves and apparently others into thinking that this game is actually pretty good. Okay, first of all, Destiny is not in a very good state right now. It's in a really weird place because it's floundering along because Bungie is not doing good. There's obviously all of the Destiny stuff, but then there's also the whole Marathon situation. And so many people have been pulled away from Destiny, and Bungie itself has downsized so much that there is not nearly enough manpower working on this game. Of course, we did finally get the news that Sony is going to be kicking most of the management out, and they're going to start taking over the entire Bungie experience on their own, and hopefully giving it a lot more support so that it can actually get back on its feet. But right now, it's in a bit of a limbo. Edge of Fate just came out, and it was not very good. It was, I mean, they tried. They clearly tried. I think that's the important thing to note here. The people that are still left working on Destiny are clearly giving it their all. They just don't have near enough resources to give the game what it actually needs to keep people entertained, especially now that the final shape's done and over with, and the main story that people had been engrossed in for 10 years has finally concluded. There's a lot more punch that needs to be added to this new storyline, and it's not there because you can tell they are stretched very, very thin with the game right now. And none of this has changed with upcoming reveals and hints and announcements. It just feels like this game is barely hanging on by a thread. So you have a fan base, a community of players who have Stockholm Syndrome themselves into this game for a very long time, are constantly there for the ups and downs, and I know I include myself among them. However, I can also say that I have, at many points in the game's history, taken a break and stepped away from Destiny and allowed myself to play other things. There are too many people in this community that have never heard of that before and are completely foreign to the concept of playing something else. So they get so enraged and so touchy and so sensitive whenever something is wrong with Destiny, and they start taking it out on everything they can, especially Bungie themselves, but every other external factor, and they are so desperate to get back the experience that they want out of Destiny that this piece of shit gacha game comes from one of the most notorious mobile developers that's still making games in the entire industry, and they look at that, and instead of going, that's wretched, that's vile, why are they doing that to my series, they go, oh my god, something different, yes, please. And they have completely deluded themselves into thinking that this game is excellent. And again, this is not to discredit the people who have valid reasons for liking this game. I know you exist, and there is actually a pretty active community that's playing the hell out of this game right now. But you're not the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who know that they're not going to like Destiny Rising, who in their heart of hearts know that this game isn't for them, yet have somehow convinced themselves that they like it because they are so desperate to not appear crazy. These are the people I'm talking about, and most of them make up the vocal minority that you might be seeing on social media right now. The people who actually enjoy Destiny Rising, they're just enjoying the game. They're not the ones who are out here yelling, this game's good, everybody, so much better than Destiny 2. That's not those people. Those are the people that need help, need therapy, they need a support group. They do not need Destiny Rising. They need to find a healthy way to detach themselves and move on. So if you're hearing a lot of stuff out of those people, a lot of noise out of those people, please ignore them. It's not worth it. Do not pick up this game. If you don't like Destiny to begin with, there's almost not a chance in hell you're going to like Destiny Rising. And even in its best moments, it's just a very mediocre mobile game that I cannot recommend at all. 3 out of 10. All right. That's enough of that. Continue to watch the gameplay in the background, I guess. It's going to go for the rest of this. I recorded like an hour or something of this, and then I hope to never pick up this game again. All right, 2 more things. Next thing. This is... Oh, I don't even know how to begin with this. This is going to be a little bit more serious. Bit of a change in tone, change in topic. It's not going to be... I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but I did want to make an announcement about this in some way, shape, or form, just because this is something that's been rattling around in my brain for, honestly, years now, but the idea of doing a video about this in particular, more so within the last year. I know I've alluded to this in past Let's Talks, and especially back during the beginning of this year and in December when I was going through my yearly bout of seasonal depression. I was not in a very good headspace at the time, and I think that in particular was one of the worst times I've ever had in my entire life. And I was alluding to things that were sort of getting in the way of productivity and making it hard for me to work on videos and things like that, but I kept it very vague. There's a lot more to it than that. It's not just the chemical imbalances in my brain. There are things going on in my life that have changed things drastically. Now, these past couple of years has been more of a reckoning, but the years prior to that has been more of an active desire to change. I haven't made personal announcements or updates in a very long time, and if I did, I think all of those videos are private or deleted. You can't even watch those anymore. I don't even think they're enlisted. They were old vlogs that I did way back in the early days of this channel, and to be completely honest with you, that person and the person I am now are completely different people. I don't even like that version of me. In fact, I really, really don't like that version of me. That was a person who had a very different perspective on things and was much more narcissistic and unempathetic, and is somebody that I try to completely disassociate with myself nowadays. I feel like I've changed a lot as a person. That was well over a decade ago, so I'm in a very different headspace now. And this is part of the whole thing, obviously. But there's a lot more to it than that. So the point is that was so long ago, I disavow all of that, but with all that said, I don't get personal here on this channel very often, aside from just opening up about mental health, but more so just because I believe that that's a cause worth talking about. Instead, I've just kind of tried to be as impersonal as possible. I've tried to make most of these updates about the Let's Plays and the channel and video games and things of that nature. Like, the only time I ever really get personal is when I'm talking about my core beliefs, and mostly around the bullshit that happens in the video game industry, just because I also think that that's something worth talking about every once in a while, but I try not to get... I try not to dwell on it too much, because then that just invites way too much negativity, and a lot more negativity than I want to have around the channel. But I'm about to turn 32, later this month, in fact, and I'm getting to a point in my life where it's like I need to find a path and stick to it, and I'm basically there. But something that's really important to me is moving on from some stuff, reconciling some things, and getting some stuff off my chest that I just think needs to be said. And so, at some point, I have no way of promising a time frame of when this is going to happen, but at some point, I'm hoping before the end of the year, but I can't even make that guarantee. I would like to put out a personal life update video that will barely even be a video, because genuinely, I don't know what footage I could put over this that will be befitting of the tone. I'm not going to put a webcam up and just talk directly into the camera, because I don't really like that format. And there's no footage of anything I could put over this that would make sense either. I'm certainly not going to put video game footage up, because this is not going to be video game related at all. Maybe, like, I'll talk about video games briefly and within certain stories that I have to share and anecdotes, but that's about it. At the most, I might just do a little bit of text overlay, but it's probably just going to be me talking over a black background for a very long time, and I'm just going to keep it a video format, because that's what this is. It's a YouTube channel. But at some point, I'm going to put it out, and I need to script it. I need to be careful with my wording. I need to make sure that I don't say things that could be taken in a way different from how I mean for them to be. I'm not going to sugarcoat things, but I also want to be as transparent, honest, and clear as I possibly can, so scripting is going to be the best way for me to do that. I'm also going to be discussing things that are definitely going to trigger certain people, so I will be putting content warnings on the video, probably at the beginning, and then also I might just leave the content warning up the entire time, I don't know, and then maybe add them to the description as well. There are going to be certain topics and subjects that will be broached that I know for a fact are uncomfortable to people. They're uncomfortable to me, in fact. There's some of those things that get me upset and frustrated, which is another reason I want to script this, because the last thing I need to do is talk about some of these more sensitive subjects and then try to ramble my way through them and then possibly get too emotional speaking about these sorts of things. That would be a very bad idea. So going to have to be very careful with the way that I do this, but it is something that I want to discuss. It's a lot of things, actually, that I want to discuss, and there's also just some things that I really want to, frankly, apologize for. Things that I did a long time ago, things that are very much old news now, things that I'm sure people will never forgive me for, and things that how do I put this? Things that I absolutely do not deserve forgiveness for, but things that I want to apologize for anyway, and then try to offer different perspectives and even in some way atone for a little bit to try to move on and be a little bit better about. Without going into specifics, of course, I'm never going to name names. I'm not going to throw people under the bus, drag them through the mud. That is incredibly unnecessary, and I'm not even going to probably say enough to allude to things that people might have an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to be so vague that it doesn't bring up any specific isolated incidents, but I am going to still talk about certain things and talk about how I've changed and how I want to approach those discussions in the future, and also make my feelings on those things clear. But also, not just that stuff, I also want to talk about some personal things about me that you guys might not even know about me, that I've had to reckon with and deal with over the past several years of my life. Mainly, I would say about since 2017, that's kind of when things really started to change a lot for me. But these past couple of years, it's been weighing on me heavily, affecting me heavily to the point where it's really made it hard to do other things. And I do want to talk about those topics because they're important to me. And again, I just want to get this stuff off my chest. I want to talk about these things. So I don't want to say get excited for this, because there's nothing to be excited about. This is not going to be an easy video for me to make when I make it. It's going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of uncomfortable subjects in it. I'm obviously not going to get so explicit that YouTube is going to come down on me, because that would be ridiculous. But I am going to get explicit to the point where there might be some things that have people shifting nervously in their seats, if that makes sense. Because I advocate for this stuff. It goes along with the way that I feel mental health should be discussed. I think it's disgusting nowadays that we've gotten into a culture of accepting mental health, but also constantly self-censoring discussions of mental health, because that doesn't help anybody and can often have the added effect of minimalizing and or trivializing people's struggles in that way. I've never believed in this whole "you are valid," quote-unquote, bullshit platitudes that don't actually mean anything way of talking about stuff. I think it's so much more important to be honest and upfront and at times even blunt, but blunt with sensitivity, blunt with empathy, to the point where you're actually having a healthy discourse and a discussion on these sorts of things. So that's usually my approach, and I'm going to try to take that approach in talking about some of this stuff, especially as I go over some of the more personal details about me that I'm sure people are going to be surprised to hear, because I think I've alluded to these things or given hints about certain things in the past, but I don't know if everybody has the information to put all of it together. So I'll talk about it later on, and we'll have this discussion. It'll probably be a super long one. It might be a couple hours long. I don't know. Again, I have to put this all together and proofread it and make sure everything is described exactly the way I want it to before I end up sitting down and actually recording this thing, because yeah, it could get very touchy very quickly if I'm not careful about this. But yeah, wanted to bring that up because it's something that's going to probably happen, and it's definitely going to happen. I just don't know exactly how soon. But I guess be on the lookout for that. And if you could, obviously form your own judgments. I'm never going to stop anybody from doing that. I'm not out here to make everybody like me. In fact, I want you all to know that I am a person who is capable of making mistakes and being an absolute dumbass. And I feel like that's the best way that I can be on the level with you guys and be as transparent as possible. So that's more or less the idea of this entire situation, and I didn't want to just flashbang you all with it and blindside everybody, because that would be weird too, especially because it's not talking as much about current events, but more things that I did a long time ago. So bringing it up randomly would be, I think, strange. I wanted to at least give you guys a heads up. All right, last thing before I send you all off, I figured I'd just bring this up really quickly just because it is sort of a current event on YouTube at the moment. But there is a bit of a snafu going on around YouTube with AI age verification and YouTube asking certain people to verify that they are over the age of 18 by using government-issued IDs. I've also heard that this can be done through credit cards. I don't know if that's actually true, though, so someone can probably correct me on that. I honestly should have probably looked that up before I said this, but just to get that out of the way real quick, if given the option, I would always say put a credit card up before a government-issued ID, because the latter is incredibly personal information. In the former, I mean, you probably also have it in streaming apps and Amazon, so not nearly as big of a deal, but only if that's an actual option, honestly. I don't even know if that's the case. Regardless, getting into the main thing, there's a big problem right now because this whole system isn't just restricting people's viewing ability, it's also damaging a lot of creators' livelihoods. And I know I'm actually exempt from this because I have very few restricted videos across this entire channel. Almost none, in fact. I mean, and I know that YouTube isn't the best at actually telling people when videos are restricted or not, but I'm pretty good on the content restrictions track record because I generally try not to get too controversial with the things that I put in my videos. I don't even really swear all that much, although that has been changing a little bit over the past couple of years. But even then, I still keep it pretty mum for the most part. And all of these are things that makes YouTube say, you know what, you got the green light, post whatever you want. All of it's going to get through, and I'm generally pretty safe with that. I don't even get copyright claims very much anymore. I think the last time I did was a number of years ago. So it's, for the most part, I'm safe from this. But I still want to bring it up because there are other creators that are definitely dealing with this situation right now. Views are dropping across the board, mainly just because a lot of people can't see certain videos from their favorite creators in their sub boxes because they're being restricted without warning. So first things first, make sure that you go and actually check and see if your channel is restricted or not. If it is, automatically, you might be able to turn that right off. But if YouTube tries to prompt you and make you verify, that's where things are going to get a little bit shaky. So like I said, whatever you do, do not by any means give Google your personal information. Do not show them your government-issued ID. Do not give them your driver's license or whatever it else is that they ask for to verify that you are that age. A credit card, like I said, if that is a thing, might be okay just because you're already putting that information in a bunch of other places anyway. So definitely a much more ideal situation from the alternative, but don't put your face on Google. Don't give them that information. They're a corporation. They do not deserve it. And I'm not saying that this is entirely Google's fault. They are being pretty much forced to do this by certain countries' mandates. And that is so much more dumb than anything Google could be doing in this situation. I mean, let's not even get into how bad regulatory bodies are at handling this sort of shit. I really wish that countries just in general would stop putting the onus on absolutely everybody else in the world to protect kids from their own shitty fucking parents. I'm very tired of that. This goes all the way back to the whole COPPA situation, where I actually made a video on that, and it got quite a few views where I told people, hey, don't worry about this too much because it's really not that big of a deal. The only thing you can't be doing is making adult content and then specifically saying it's made for kids. That was the only thing you weren't allowed to do in that situation. And it did prove to be just a big nothing burger because, yes, that was the case. As long as you don't make an adult video but then market it to kids, you're not going to be in trouble. Make sure you just say it's for adults. You're going to be fine no matter what. It is then on YouTube if they decide to market that to kids for one reason or another. My problem is the fact that kids are involved in general. My problem is the fact that there is a YouTube Kids app. My problem is the fact that this website does not completely block out anybody under the age of 18. It's insanity to me. I know it's not a porn site. I get it. But YouTube, by its very nature, is supposed to be sort of a free-for-all. And what do you do when it's a free-for-all? You generally lean towards the fact that it is an adult website. And that's what YouTube is. That is what YouTube kind of always has been. If they hadn't actually made the YouTube Kids app, if they hadn't started gearing towards kids more and advertising towards them, which that's the big thing, by the way, if they hadn't started doing all that, they wouldn't even be in this situation in the first place. They wouldn't have nearly as much pressure, or if they did, they could honestly probably go tell these regulatory bodies to just fuck off. But no, they've put themselves in that situation, and now we all have to deal with the consequences. So all I can say is see if you can get rid of your restriction by any means necessary, but please be careful about it, be safe about it, do what's best for you, do not do what's best for Google. And if you have to find other avenues, find other avenues. Sometimes you're going to have to go out of your way to support your creators, and that sucks. But it's not their fault. They have no control over this situation. Videos are randomly being restricted, seemingly arbitrarily, in much the same way that users are getting flagged for being under 18 arbitrarily. I have seen people with YouTube accounts that are as old as the website itself, and they are getting hit with the age verification warning, and I don't even know how that's mathematically possible. Things like that are happening right now, and it's ridiculous. But all you can do is, I think, just continue to support your creators. Do the best that you can. Sometimes you might just have to go out of your way. It's sad. The sub box has always been the most reliable way to pay attention to the videos you actually care about. I hate the home tab. I've always hated the home tab. It's so bad. I really have never been able to understand why people rely on it so much, because it is so algorithmically driven and also so bad at organizing the things that you actually want to see. You can really only trust maybe like the first 3 results on there, because they'll actually be relevant to things you're watching. You scroll down more than once and you're already getting into really dubious, weird territory. Even like I'm going right now, I just looked at my home, which I never look at, and I just scrolled down like once and I've already got like strange political videos, and I do not watch political videos at all. The closest I get to that personally is actually history videos. There are a few channels that are history based that I do enjoy, but no, I've got ones about like modern events that are political if I just scroll down once on my home feed. It's ridiculous. I cannot believe that YouTube's algorithm is still this bad, and depending on it is the worst thing ever. So I've always advocated for the subscriptions feed, always said that that's the most reliable, the safest place to go. And unfortunately, that's not even the case anymore, because now restricted videos might just be randomly hidden if your video or if your channel happens to be in the restricted mode. You just straight up cannot even see them. You have to go out of your way to find these videos, and sometimes even then that's not good enough and you can't see them at all. And it sucks. This entire situation sucks. But please take care of yourself. Don't kowtow to Google. That's not worth it. Be smart, be savvy, YouTube responsibly, whatever you want to say. But yes, this is a thing going on right now, and I did want to address it at least a little bit. Even though I really don't think it affects me at all, there's not really a way for me to even tell if it did, to be completely honest. But like I said, YouTube's pretty nice to me when it comes to how it restricts my videos, because I'm pretty nice back and generally don't make very much stuff that would possibly even get close to drawing YouTube's ire. I don't know. Maybe that update video will change some things. We will see. But that's all I have to say. I know that was a long one, almost an hour. I'm so sorry. A lot of rambling, a lot of things to discuss, a lot of things to talk about, but we finally are here. If you made it this far, congratulations. But that's going to be it for this one. Thank you all so very much for watching. As always, I hope you all enjoyed it very, very much, and I'll see you all in the next one.